If you're trying to really have a successful e-commerce store, regardless of the niche you're in, you got to really follow a certain law of success. Okay, what I want to really share with you into this conversation is that the law of success for e-commerce stores, from small stores to a large stores. Let me first give you an overview. The thing is that when you think about an e-commerce store, you want to have an effective e-commerce stores that make money consistently. You got to think about a couple of things, from branding, okay, all the way to a competitive analysis, all the way to a trend analysis. But one thing that's really important, and this is actually the cornerstone of the law of success for e-commerce stores, it has to do with your target audience. Everything starts with your target audience and ends with your target audience, because you're not selling products. You are selling a lifestyle. You are selling a brand. You are actually selling an experience. Okay, and your customers are spending money to acquire a little bit of that experience. They're not buying a product. They think they're buying a product, but it's not the product that they're buying. Okay, when somebody's buying an iPhone, for instance, they're not spending $1,500. Okay, on a tech gear. They are buying a brand. They're buying some kind of story, a storytelling process. Okay, that they're buying brand equity that Apple has actually built over the years. Okay, so it's really important to really pay attention to that aspect of things. So my point is that before you think about having a successful e-commerce store, just remember that you're not selling products. Okay, I mean, e-commerce nowadays is a multi-billion, if not like a multi-billion-dollar industry. Some people are saying that by 2030, you probably get e-commerce to reach 1 trillion in terms of revenue globally. Okay, so you have a huge market that's really there. But if you want to really eke out a certain profits in your niche, you have to differentiate yourself. But you have to understand the fundamental law of success for e-commerce stores, especially if you are a beginner. Okay, or you're not really like an experienced seller. Okay, you got to really. So here's a law of success, the law of success for e-commerce stores. The first thing you want to do here is that you have to really go back to customer goals. That's what I said to you. That it's not about you. Okay, it's you trying to really solve a pain point from the customer. So the first law of success for e-commerce stores is actually the set of customer goals. Okay, so before embarking on let's say having a successful e-commerce store, ask yourself, what kind of problems are you trying to solve? What kind of problems are your products or services solving? Okay, what are the pain points that your customers are actually grappling with, your potential customers? So if you are able to really understand the customer goals, you can come up with solutions that can really help them big time. You also want to make shopping easy. If you want to have a successful e-commerce store, make shopping easy. Don't try to complicate things. Like normally the road to checkout, the itinerary to checkout to the checkout page has to be straightforward. And don't try to really complicate things at that point too. It's all about making sure that you're making things very easy for the customers, because the customers is your king or queen, for that matter. So that's important. So make shopping easy. Too many sites ask their customers to navigate switchbacks just to evaluate and purchase the product. But what if your site experience cut out the switchbacks, okay, for a straight line approach? The answer is simple. Your conversions will increase at the same time as your sales. That's what you want. You also want to have the perfect product page. This is important if you have to really interact with your customers real fast. Okay, you want to make sure that they're having a good experience on the product page. The product page shouldn't be too crowded. It should have the minimum information, right? The very nice description, what the product is doing, what the product can do for the customer. Don't just list all the features the product has. No, say what the product can do for customers. And you also want to add to cart and checkout. Okay, so really, one thing you need to understand here is that if you are trying to really have a successful e-commerce store, your checkout page It has to be straightforward. It has to be straightforward. It has to also be streamlined. That's an important element to think about, especially if you are trying to really reduce, let's say, cart abandonment. Okay, and cart abandonment is really a big thing for a lot of stores, by the way. So this is important to keep in mind. One thing you have to really understand here is that when it comes to the law of success for e-commerce stores, you got to really think about your brand's goals, your customers' goals, okay, and your brand's goals. What are your brand's goals, and what is your brand tone? Make sure that your brand tone actually is in sync with the values and the principles that your store has. Every store has principles, okay? If you have an online store, chances are you have a set of rules and I would say principles that govern how you operate, how you interact with customers. Make sure that you understand your goals and are willing to actually your like be willing actually to meet your customers' goals halfway. In other words, you want to have a win-win situation. Okay, that's going to help you actually close the deal real fast, and sell more products. Also, remember that the web is a self-service medium, so there are things that you can really do, and there are things that you want others to do for you. Okay, but when people come to your e-commerce store, they already have a goal in mind. Okay, so if the content and organization of your site doesn't naturally support their goal, they will leave your site and likely never return. Remember that basically it's a first impression matters thing, okay? So unless your site is actively designed to save people time accomplishing the things that are important to them, it is actually losing sales and frustrating customers. And you do not want to be in that position, by the way. It's a position that's not really interesting. You also want to think of your site like a store. If you're trying to have a successful e commerce store, think of your site like a store, especially the way you want to close sales real fast. So instead of customers walking in and asking an employee to help, your site acts as both a product display and a sales rep. So thankfully, it can effectively serve both roles with the right supporting content, right? So this is really important, especially if you are trying to increase conversions and sales this year. Okay, one thing you need to understand here is that customers are primarily interested in, let's say, researching and purchasing products. So if you deliver a site that helps customers easily find and buy the right products for their needs, your site, your e-commerce store, will deliver. Okay, on the on the higher sales numbers. So that's really an important element to think about. One thing I want to do, I want to tell you here is that if you are trying to really, let's say, if you're thinking about a lot of success for e-commerce stores, you have to put yourself in your customer's shoes. Okay, and the way you will actually do this is that you help your customers find what they're looking for, because you want to really make sure that things are done ergonomically and customer can really find what they're looking for real fast too. Because nowadays people are very busy, and your website visitors probably have a few minutes, okay, before they go to the next task. And if you don't offer what they want, they're not going to really help you out in terms of revenue. Okay, so online shopping experience has to be quintessential in the way you think about an e-commerce store. I mean, your e-commerce store. So it's important to treat each visitor differently and support easy navigation through your site catalog. Consider each of these specific approaches. So, specific item purchase, predetermined goal, intent to buy, content research or category research. So, product goal, researching with intent to buy, and also you have bargain shopping. Okay, so you have those three categories in terms of reaching the core of your target audience. You also need to really, if you're trying to have a successful e-commerce store, you want to actually design your site for the single digital experience. Okay, the thing is that it's not just about saying, well, I'm going to have a physical store, and the digital store will just be there for me. Not necessarily. No, you are going to lose a lot of cash. Put all your efforts into designing a site that really appeals to your target audience. Okay. So if one thing you have to understand here is that people access their favorite shopping sites from various devices and locations, ranging from their living room to their basement to even a retail showroom. So customers not only expect to access the same content they're able to get from their home computer, but they expect the exact same content experience from their mobile device. Okay, so this is an important element because even Google's own research corroborates this conclusion. So it's up to you to really create that kind of experience for your customers this year. Another law of success when it comes to e-commerce stores, your e-commerce store, is to really get better results. Okay, you want to really pay attention to the experience, the customer experience, the visitor experience, but most importantly, making sure that you are offering what your visitors want real fast. Okay, so this is an important element. If you want to get better results, make sure that you are taking the approach of redesigning or designing your site and releasing it, making sure that things are getting done faster for your visitor. Visitors a lot of times have a goal in mind when they visit the web. Okay, whether they come to your store directly or go through something else before coming to your store. Your store has to be the final destination that helps them solve their problems. Okay, so basically, if you want to really make sure your store is successful, you want to test efficiently. Okay, when you have established the baseline for your site, for instance, then you can compare different versions of an interface, copy, images, navigation, etc., against your baseline to see what performs best. And you got to have a clear idea about what performs best, especially if you are trying to really make money, okay, on a consistent basis. So it's important. Testing becomes a quintessential law of success for e-commerce stores. And one thing I also want to say here is that when you think about successful e-commerce stores, this is not just a one-time thing. Okay, this is an ongoing process. You can't even if you are successful, even if you're reckoning millions of dollars in revenue, you'll still have to have a strategy in place to be able to sustain that. Because nothing is permanent. If you don't really sustain it, if you don't maintain it, you are going to lose sales. You are going to lose also all kinds of what I call like traffic, if you will. Okay, especially if you're talking to different audiences. Different audiences have different needs, and they also will interact with your brand differently, whether they visit through the mobile or home computer or whatever. If you are trying to really get a successful e-commerce store, you need to think about analytics. And analytics is not just about looking at the numbers, right? You want to really see what those numbers mean. The numbers are actually sending you a message, and if you are able to, let's say, untangle, if you are able to unwind that message, to decipher the message, you'll be able to act on the message content. Okay, so when you think about looking at customer behavior to really see what happens, you got to pay attention to a few things. For example, mobile, desktop, you visits with conversions and transactions, and also visits with search. Right. So the pages, for instance, where the search occurs, the search result quality versus the conversion rate, the time on site, and also pages viewed after search, so that you know exactly what kind of real estate on your store site is actually driving traffic. Okay. Also, you want to look at the customer service feedback loop. If you are trying to have a successful e-commerce store, your customer service has to become quintessential to your let's say to your goal, to your revenue goal. Okay. And so when you think about customer service, you have to think about a multi-layered experience. that really sort of covers the customer segment, the problem they are raising, why they call customer service in the first place, the product categories of interest, not only in terms of the product they want, but also the product categories they are actually having most issues. You want to really have a clear idea of what's happening, okay? And that means that if you have the proper software, you can really pay more attention to the call log. So the call log, for instance, should capture the following information from each caller to customer service: customer segment, product categories of interest, okay, again, the key issues prompting customer to call for help, for example, purchasing, product info, sizing, warranty, return, shipment tracking, account login, team purchase, etc. And you also want to open text box to summarize key issues and any related note. Now, if you have the proper software, all these things that I'm telling you can be automated. Okay, very, very, very important. Another law of success for e-commerce has to do with navigation. Navigation is really important in terms of making sure people are getting their answers real fast. Visitors are getting their answers real fast when they visit your website. Don't try to make navigation. Don't try to have things complicated. Okay, navigation is always your online store's biggest challenge, often because the industry has a backwards brand first way of thinking about content production. Okay, backwards brand first way. Typically, content producers, okay, are more concerned with volume than quality in the constant quest for relevant conversation. Meanwhile, this content ages quickly and doesn't help customers make a helpful decision. So, spending time improving your site content will show up in higher conversion rates, especially if you are trying to really get things in a very clear manner, in a very straight line manner. Okay, so navigation is really important. You also want to think about the key landing page content. So your website, your e-commerce store may have or may not have a landing page. But whatever you decide, make sure if you want to go with the landing page, a landing page has to have a few items if you want them to be if you want the landing page to be successful. And in other words, to continue growing, helping you grow revenue. So you want to really have, for instance, on a landing page, you want to have links to top selling products, featured product videos, descriptively named product categories prioritized by popularity, the product search bar, the store locator, the customer service contact information, and also a link to a shopping cart. Okay, I mean, more content equals more complexity. Complexity stands in the way of people completing the evaluation or action they set out to do. That's why you want to make things as simple as possible. You also want to think about site search. Site search is an important law of success for e-commerce stores. Okay, so a site search will play different roles for different e-commerce sites. So generally, the bigger the inventory, the more important search will become. Unfortunately, if there is one area where sites consistently fail their customers, it is in the search area. So what you want to do here is that if you want to be a successful e-commerce store owner, make sure you pay attention to site search. I mean, customers who know exactly what they're looking for often turn to the site search with the expectation that this will get them, okay, what they're looking for faster than navigating through the site. And search terms customers use range from the exact product names down to product SKUs for the product SKUs for e-commerce. Okay, so this is important. One thing you want to really think about is how you navigate everything across the board, and this has to come at the end in terms of flexibility, but also in terms of adaptability. So when I speak about the let's say the product page, for instance, okay, You got to have a pro- I really apologize here. You have to really think about product comparison, for instance. Okay, you got to really think about how you really make things happen, especially if you are trying to really get things done faster. So you can have an excellent product compare tool. So this will provide the same kind of info about similar products. Will contain detailed technical specs, and you also want to think about the store locator. So if you're trying to have a successful e-commerce store, think about think about having a successful store locator, and you want the store locator to be easy to find in the main menu and on product pages. It's easy to use. It includes key contact information for each of your store. If you have if you have a group of physical stores, okay, and you also want to think about the content quality checklist to make sure that your store, the goal of your store is to make sales, right? But the blog can really help you. A blog can really help you big time. Actually, solidify that traffic. Okay, so content quality becomes important. You also you also want to pay attention to pricing. Pricing is going to help you big time, especially when it comes to navigating a very competitive marketplace. So, in conclusion to this conversation, I spoke to you about the law of success for e-commerce stores. I gave you the overview and the law of success, actually broken down by every category you can imagine. Thank you so much. God bless you. I will see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.